I did my presentation on how to keep Girl Scouts motivated as they mature. As a middle school leader, or as a leader for middle school girls, I'm finding this is at the time that they start dropping out. Some of the issues, especially starting in 6th grade when they're in this new environment. The girls have a sense of belonging. They need to be a part of something. They need to be with friends. They just have this need. There's also issues with intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. I've found girls, most of the younger ones are very extrinsically motivated. They like a lot of them joined at the beginning of the year because they were doing an iPad giveaway for whichever troops had the most new girls join, and that would be how I ended up with 32 girls. However, I still have 26. So another issue is they're looking for a purpose and leadership opportunities. They don't really get those in the traditional elementary schools. And another issue that can come up is their individual faith. Some of the girls feel like they have to either stop going to church or just it's a whole part of that whole sense of belonging. So my big question is, how do we keep them engaged and involved? Because, like I said, this is when they start dropping out. Okay, yes, these are 4 of my girls. I took to Elitch's last year. They had a great time. So their social needs, with being accepted with other girls their age, they are also feeling a lot of peer pressure. Peer pressure has a very negative connotation. People are always like, okay, peer pressure is always a bad thing. It's not always a bad thing. This can mean that girls join sports. They join, obviously, Girl Scouts. They join different groups just because all their other friends are joining. So with intrinsic motivation, the goal is to actually get them to become intrinsically motivated. So they set their mastery goals and performance goals. I don't know if you guys are all aware of what those are. But the mastery goals focuses on what they are actually doing, what they're actually learning. The performance goals are basically the extrinsic motivators. It's like, I'm doing this just because I want to get this. And along with that is a perceived locus of control. And that is how they see whether they have control over what happens to them, their choices, their decisions. And one of the articles, it was Dweck that Dr. Don sent me, and I've heard this before. With praise, what you want to do with, especially girls this age or kids this age, you want to praise them for their, not for their. In this case, in the case you're saying is, you don't want to praise them for their intelligence. You want to praise them for how hard they work. You don't want to say you did this because you're smart. You want to say this because you want to say you did great because you worked hard, because that means the next time they go to do something, they know that they can work harder to do it, as opposed to, okay, if I did it because I'm smart, that's as smart as I am. I'm not going to get any smarter. Mm-hmm. So, another thing is integrating faith with their learning. They actually do have badges, which is kind of surprised me when I looked at it. but they do have badges that go with their faith. It's called my faith, I can't remember, but for every year that they're in, they can earn a different one. Granted, they're not all Christian. I've got girls in my troop who are from, obviously from I don't know if you can tell. So girls from Thailand, girls from Mexico, girls from Somalia, all over. So, but we can integrate their faith with the program by saying, hey, you're doing these community service projects because that's part of what you feel like you're supposed to do. That's part of what you were taught, going to church. And so I've got several girls that every time I turn around, they're begging me to go to the retirement center because they want to go hang out with the old people. But they usually do like root beer floats or so they go and help and they have a good time and they don't do it for anything. So increased motivation has actually been linked to previous levels of motivation and how they have worked through even just through school. The higher the motivation and encouragement levels they've had, the higher the motivation they have as they grow older. One of the biggest things is the girls need to have positive role models. One of the things I've found is that these positive role models need to be outside of the school and outside of the home. Because I've seen parents that have come in and then girls just don't want to do anything. I've seen teachers come in, the girls don't want to do anything. So it's a matter of building that trust and that relationship. And my girls call me constantly. So, I have no doubt that they trust me. I have no doubt that they know that I care about them. And the founder of Girl Scouts, Juliet Gordon-Lowe, actually said, "My purpose, to go on with my heart and soul, devoting all my energies to Girl Scouts, and heart and hand with them, will make our lives and the lives of future girls happy, healthy, and holy." I found that, and I was just like, that's perfect. So I've come across so many studies. They have. I've found some that have done unobtrusive observations. There have been some longitudinal studies, but those are kind of iffy because they have a hard time following the same girls. Some have done evaluations. The one that I found that's probably the best right now actually came from the Girl Scout Research Institute because they had over 4,000 responses, and they did focus groups, individual interviews, online chats, random telephone surveys, and online surveys. So they kind of just did a lot of everything. So the results of this is, like I said, with the role models comes the leader support. The girls need to know that there is somebody there that supports what they do, that they can feel safe. They can mess up, and I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to tell them, hey, you can't do that. I give them plenty of options to do. The girls need to feel satisfied. Not necessarily because they get something out of it, but because they just feel that satisfaction. Empowerment's also another one. I have had some girls, I think about 4 of them, that have just kind of come out of the woodwork and gone from being just, I'm only here because, my friends are here, to being, I want to go do this, I want to be involved in this, and I'm just like, it's amazing to see these girls actually growing into these leadership roles. The research from the Girl Scouts, the surveys that they did, found that the longer the girls stay in Girl Scouts, the more likely they are to volunteer, graduate from college, and not just graduate from college, the longer they stay, the higher the degrees they end up getting. They end up in more leadership roles. That would be why, like, I think 60% of women in Congress are actually former Girl Scouts, and 80% of female business owners were Girl Scouts. So obviously goes along with the career, and the relationships are better with each other. The girls form relationships with each other, and those relationships last forever. Proverbs 20:11 says, "Even children are known by the way they act, whether their conduct is pure and right." So I did put a couple. I have actually done a survey, and I have sent it out. I haven't received a whole bunch of responses, but I've got about 30. But this actually shows a good breakdown of what the levels look like. This is the youngest group, and it goes around to the oldest group. This is the group I have, and even though it doesn't drop off going from here to here, this is from 6th to 8th grade. So by the time they hit 9th grade, it's half the girls. It drops to half, and that's why it's so concerning. And this is actually why volunteers think girls stay in Girl Scouts. Awards and badges, trips and camps, community service and friendship. I would know only because of what I've seen with my girls, that friendships and the trips and camps are going to be the two big ones. So even though friendships aren't very popular on the list of why volunteers say they stay in, it is. So the purpose and goals, Cook Deegan defined purpose as a dedicated commitment, personal meaningfulness, goal-directedness, and a vision bigger than self. So that right there is a big thing for the girls, and knowing finding what their purpose is. That's one of the big things at this age, is discovering what they can do, what they like to do. The mission of Girl Scouts is to build girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place, which I love that. Once again, we want their goal orientations to be more intrinsically motivated as opposed to extrinsically motivated. So there's the transition there between 6th and 8th grade that some of that is they're in the process of changing. They also the girls have what they call higher awards, and they start, the grade level will be just below what I've got. But they can earn their bronze, silver, and then gold awards. And what these are the community service projects that are self-sustaining, and they do them on different levels at each grade. So I've actually got, like I said, I was leaving the conference yesterday, and I had one girl call me, and she's like, I know what I want to do for my silver award, and I'm like, okay, we'll sit down and talk about that when I get home. So, which is great, because that means I've got somebody, I've got 3 girls that are wanting to work on community service awards, or self-sustaining community service projects, which is amazing because they're all in 7th grade. So I still have a year to work with them. So, the pros and cons of extrinsic motivation, and this would be like with their badges and awards. There's a pro of immediate response with mechanical skills. So basically, if you say, here, finish this project and I'll give you this, they'll do it immediately. However, if you give them a project, this is one of the things that I learned with my psychology classes. If you give them a project and say, here, come up with an idea for this, and then I'll give you this, it takes them a lot longer to think of something and be creative with something, because they're trying to hurry. Now, if you tell them, okay, come up with an idea, and later we'll do something later, once everybody's had their idea out on the table, the girls will just, it's amazing what they can come up with. I have just been blown away with some of the things that the girls, even at the middle school age, can think of. And then extrinsic motivation also undermines intrinsic motivation the same way, because if they're always promised something for doing something, they're not going to want to do something just because that's what they want to do, that's what they're supposed to do. So that's always a danger right there. So I do have other questions that I definitely want to look into. Like, what kind of effect does parental involvement have on the girl's decision to stay? Honestly, I only have 2 parents that are involved in anything with my troop. So it's been kind of interesting that I've had, like 2 girls from my original 4 that have actually stayed all 3 years. Their parents haven't had anything to do with it. So it's something I want to look into, because I'm really, really curious. If a girl moves, will she join a new troop? I know I have one girl who actually joined our troop just because she moved and she wanted to be a part of something. But if they're a part of a troop and then they leave, do they really want to get to know new girls? Here's one of the problems that I'm going to have when the girls switch to other schools, because they have a new school being built, and I've got 4 girls going to a different school, and then the rest of them going to the new school, and both groups want me at their schools. And I'm like, I don't think I can go both directions. So I'm hoping that we can either get another volunteer in, something, because the girls need it. They want it, they love it. My other question is, how do you motivate leaders? One of the questions that I had sent out on my survey was an open-ended question, and I had asked, well, what kind of things do you do to motivate your Girl Scouts? And I got one response that it's not my job to motivate them. It's their job to motivate themselves. And I have a really hard time with that, because I feel like they need a certain amount of motivation to be able to do it themselves. Because when they're going into, like I said, it's the peer pressure, it's everything going on around them. They're in these environments where I can't believe some of the stuff that goes on in middle school. And for somebody to say, well, I'm not supposed to motivate them, I just kind of like, okay. So I really want to know if that has to do with motivating leaders. I had much different responses from everybody else. So it was just that one, and I was just like, okay. So yeah, those are my other questions and things I plan to look into with the rest of my thesis. There's all my references. Good job.
Yeah.
Like how you said that it's your job